Welcome back to another short lecture. This time I'm going to talk about the Battle of the Books. Of course, we know this is the title of a short satire written by Jonathan Swift. But more than this, this was, a profound continuation of a legacy of the conflict between the ancients and the moderns. But I begin with the Battle of the Books. It was, in fact, what to call a prolegomena or a preface written to his longer version or longer satire, A Tale of a Tub, which appeared in 1704. So Jonathan Swift wrote this short satire named The Battle of the Books as a prolegomena or as a preface to his A Tale of the Tub. Actually, this short satire depicts a literal battle between books in the king's library, which was housed in or located in St. James Palace at the time of its writing. Remember, the king's library was located or housed in St. James Palace at the time of the writing of the Battle of the Books. In fact, ideas and authors struggled for supremacy in the battle, and it has become really, the title of the book, The Battle of the Books, has become a term for the quarrel between the ancients and the moderns in the late 18th century. Talking about the quarrel between the ancients and moderns, it all emerged in France. In France, by the end of the 17th century, there arose a minor furor over the question of whether contemporary learning had overtaken the superstitious and limited world of classical Greece and Rome. So the modern period was thought of as overtaking the classical period, particularly connected with Greece and Rome. Well, the moderns, in this case in France, was epitomized by a man named Bernard Fontenelle. Bernard Fontenelle, who took the position that the modern age of science and reason was far superior to the superstitious and, yes, a limited world of the Greeks and the Romans. In his opinion, the modern man saw farther than the ancients ever could see. But at the same time, the ancients, for their part, they argued that all that is necessary to be known was to be found in the great writings of the masters of classical antiquity, like Virgil, Cicero, Homer, or especially in the writings of Plato and Aristotle. The kind of literary contest which took shape in France was reenacted, not on a very large scale, in England when Sir William Temple, a prominent public figure who was, actually in big political positions, William Temple published an answer to Fontenelle, the French Fontenelle, entitled Of Ancient and Modern Learning. That was the title of the work, Of Ancient and Modern Learning, which appeared in 1690. This essay by Sir William Temple introduced two metaphors in which the modern man was presented as a dwarf, the metaphor of the dwarf, standing upon the shoulders of giants, giants standing for the ancients. These metaphors of the dwarf versus the giant and the reflecting versus emanative light. There are two lights also brought into play in his writing. These actually triggered a series of writings from both sides supporting the ancients as well as the moderns. Temple's essay was answered by Richard Bentley, the classical scholar, and William Wharton, supporting the cause of the moderns. William Temple's friends, who were better known as Christ Church wits, because they were all connected with the Christ Church at the Oxford University, they attacked the moderns, and Wharton in particular. They attacked Wharton in particular. The debate lasted in England for a short period of time, say for about a few years. As I told you already, William Temple was by then a retired minister, the Secretary of State for Charles II, And you know, his involvement in this controversy was really something unbecoming of his position as a great statesman and a political figure. Well, actually, most of the battle took place between Temple's enemies and Temple's supporters or proxies. Notably, you know, one thing we have to remember in this context is the fact that Jonathan Swift was working as secretary with William Temple, but he did not take any sides. And if you look at, you know, A Tale of the Tub, we can find that he doesn't declare the result of the battle of the books. Who is the winner? We do not know. Exactly, that is to be surmised by the reader. From its first publication, Swift added a short satire entitled The Battle of the Books to the Tale of a Tub. And in this satire, you know, Swift skillfully manages to avoid taking sides, and with which side victory fell is left uncertain, or it is inconclusive. But what he says is very clear, that the manuscript has been damaged because of the battle of the books. Well, the battle is not just between classical authors and modern authors in this case. It becomes a little more comprehensive with Jonathan Swift. It is also between authors and critics. And the kind of prose that he uses to parody the heroic poetry is the one which was used by Samuel Butler in his parody of the battle in Hudibras. Well, the combat or the battle in the Battle of the Books is interrupted by the interpolated allegory. This is something very interesting and very important, the interpolated allegory of the spider and the bee. In fact, the bee is like the ancients and like others. It gathers its materials from nature and sings its drone song in the fields. The spider is like the moderns and like critics. It kills the weak and then spins its web, thus creating books of criticism by critics from the taint of its own body, digesting the viscera. This is what is intended by the introduction of what is called the allegory of the spider and the bee in the Battle of the Books. That's all about the Battle of the Books. But before closing, there is one more, sentence for your understanding, that Swift's Battle of the Books owed a great deal to Boileau, the French Boileau's Les Lutrines, the lectern. Les Lutrines or the lectern, although it is not a simple straight translation of Boileau's Les Lutrines. Thank you very much.